evening, everybody. I'm Medeline. I'm an adult child and codependent, and I'll be one of your hosts tonight.
This is Nancy B., and I am Al-Anon, ACA codependent, and I'm your other host for tonight.
And Emily will again be our tech support. I want to welcome you to the Anatomy of the 12-Step Study Group. The purpose of this group is to examine each of the 12 steps in a very basic way. This Zoom meeting is not affiliated with nor endorsed by any specific 12-step program. In addition, this study group is not intended as a replacement for having a sponsor or attending other meetings. We know that the various 12-step programs may have a different focus as reflected in their version of the 12 steps. However, we believe that regardless of which addiction or problem brought you into the various rooms of recovery, the solutions are always the same, the 12 steps. As you already know, and as demonstrated throughout this anatomy series, there are many ways to do the steps. Tonight, we'll focus on step 11 and the ways to do it. Step 11, as you remember, is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. Not only will we have time for questions and answers during the session tonight, we'll also stay on after closing to answer any further questions that you may have. And before we get started, a few reminders. Number one, any 12-step recovery material is accepted tonight. However, we ask that you not share non-12-step information during the meeting. And number two, please mute your mic until ready to speak. So, are you ready to get started? I'll turn it over to Nancy.
Hi, everybody. Like I said earlier, my name's Nancy B., and what I'm going to do is talk to you about my experience with step 11. Before I do, it would just help me get in the right frame of mind to say the Serenity Prayer. So I'm going to say it, and if you all want to put yourself on mute and silently say it with me, that would be great. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you all. That helped me a lot. I'm going to try to do this with telling as little of my story as possible. But I do have to tell you that I was raised as a Roman Catholic. And so I learned how to pray. I learned how to say the prayers of the Roman Catholic Church. And that's still a part of me today. And I'll explain that a little bit more as I get to it. But for my step 11 and my steps in general, I had to sort of redevelop my concept of a higher power. And my higher power is now a loving God who is non-denominational. It's very eclectic. I work with things from the Christian religion, the Catholic religion. I work with things from Buddhism. I work with things from mindfulness. So I work with different things from a variety of different religious experiences. Step 11 for me starts out with, I sought through prayer and meditation. So it kind of tells me what I need to do. And for me, prayer is talking to God, and meditation is listening to God. For prayer, I started out in my life, like I said, using the very concrete prayers of the Catholic Church that you memorize. And I remember a time when I thought, Our Father who art in heaven meant that God was up there with an easel and some paints, art. So it was very concrete for me. And I've developed kind of, as the years have gone by, I've developed a very different sense of prayer. And now my sense of prayer is very much kind of talking to God throughout the day. The job that I do, I see people every hour on the hour. And so between the people that I see, I always ask for God to show me how to be the person that this person needs. And then before the next person, I'll say, God, show me how to be the person that this person needs. And so, I try to invite my higher power into the room silently, to help me help the next person. Other thing that I do is I try to, ask God for God's guidance as the day progresses. If I'm about to go into a meeting or I'm about to go do something challenging, I try to, ask my higher power for guidance as I do that. The one part of the step 11 that I really love is the ending where it says, to improve our conscious contact with God's minister, God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry it out. So when I'm really, really upset and I really, really don't know what else to do, I will just pray for knowledge of God's will and the power to carry it out. So I'll simply say, God, grant me knowledge of your will and the power to carry it out. And that is so simple. It's such a simple prayer that somehow it just grounds me no matter what. Like if I'm having trouble falling asleep at night because things are running around in my head, I'll just say, God, grant me knowledge of your will and the power to carry it out. And just pray that simple prayer. And somehow it just grounds me. I also will pray when I am faced with someone who is, what's the word I want? Who is trying to start conflict by arguing or yelling or whatever it is their chosen thing is to try to start conflict or to try to, release emotions. I'll pray for God to just, help me just be there and not to buy into the conflict or not to buy into whatever that person is starting. So that's all the different kinds of prayer that I've used kind of throughout the years. And of course, the serenity prayer. I've worn out the serenity prayer many times, but even more than the serenity prayer, that God grant me knowledge of your will and the power to carry that out. That has gotten me through a lot. And it says prayer and meditation. And I've had challenges with meditation throughout the years. And I think I have finally come to a place where I really enjoy meditation. I'm not going to say that I do it every day because that would be a lie, but I do it most days. And it doesn't have to be long for me. It can be only about 5 minutes. And what I'll do is set a timer and I will just focus on my breath. And then the thing that has worked for me is someone told me to envision my thoughts as clouds passing by. So I used to think that meditation was just clearing your mind of thoughts. And if you were having a thought, you were doing something wrong and you weren't meditating in the quote, right quote way. Well, now I know that that wasn't correct. And meditation is about noticing your thoughts and then surrendering them. So if I have a thought while I'm meditating, can be about something I have to do next or something that happened before or whatever. I just notice it and I act like it's a cloud just passing by, and it leaves as quick as it comes. I don't entertain those thoughts. I don't keep them around. I don't make them bigger than what they should be. And so just noticing the thoughts and letting them go is how I meditate now. I sent you guys a whole list of meditations from YouTube that I think are really good ones. And I have had to look at a lot of meditations on YouTube for my job, and I have to kind of, decide which ones I'm going to use for different things. And so as a part of that, as I was going through, I set aside the ones that I thought were good for program. And so that's the list that I've sent you. Those who got my list last year, this list is a more extensive one. So I will not tell you that I checked every single link again. They were working at the time I used them. So if there's a link that's not working, I apologize for that. Did not have a chance to check them all through again. So, but meditation for me is, it's the way I quiet my mind, and it's the way that I stay in the present moment. Because I think a lot of my anxiety and a lot of my stress is caused by not being in the present moment. And so meditation helps me do that. It helps improve my concentration when I try to focus at work. If I'm thinking about the past or about the future, I'm not present right here, right where I am. And I like to be present in the present moment, because that's how I know what to be grateful for. That's how I know what's good in my life. And during COVID, I came up with a little mantra that also helps me. And that is, in this moment, I am safe. And so I say that a lot when I need to calm myself down. So those are some of the ways that I practice step 11. I practice both the prayer and the meditation part because I think they do different things for me. That Catholic part will always be a part of me. And when I was thinking about what to say tonight, on the way home, not being present in the present moment, but thinking about what I was going to say tonight. One of the things I thought about, it just popped into my head, is that I still, when things are really, really tough, like the night my mom died, I reached for my rosary. And so that's something that's really ingrained in me. And that's something that will probably always be a part of me. And that night I was thinking about how the rosary is actually a meditation. Because people who say the rosary, they say those prayers over and over again, and it becomes kind of a meditative practice. So I will even reach for that once in a while, not very often, but once in a while, I will reach for that. When I do, I know that I really have a lot on my mind, and I really want to be connected with that earlier family and that earlier person that I was. So step 11 helps me through every single day. It helps me stay centered. It helps me stay close to my higher power. And it helps me to remain in the present moment, which is where I need to be to really experience my recovery and to really experience serenity. Being in the present moment is it. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Medeline, who is going to tell you how she does step 11.
Thank you, Nancy. And yes, I will share with you how I do step 11, because I'm sort of like Nancy in ways, but quite different because I'm an atheist. And if you've probably noticed in the step 11, the way it's written, how many times is the word God in that step? Have you noticed? Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power that carry that out. And as you probably remember from some of my other shares, I had a hard time with the God concept when I got into recovery. But when I finally got through and heard y'all tell me that I can have any kind of higher power concept I want, then I was much better off and I could reinterpret the steps to fit me. And at first, I changed the God concept or higher power to greater power. And that's what I called it in the beginning. And greater power was anything from Mother Nature to laws of physics or whatever. And I think the God concept for me, it simply makes me teachable. It makes me aware of what's going on around me. It just pulls me back into my skin. Being an atheist doesn't mean I reject all parts of religious doctrines. There's a lot of real beautiful Christian music out there, and I still like a lot of it. There's a lot of pieces from the Bible, both Old and New Testament, that I love. But I also like a lot of pieces from the Upanishads from India, from the Tao Te Ching, from Taoism, you know, from other religions. I think they're really, really good, and I use them. But I don't have the higher power concept. There's another phrase that someone said in a meeting one time, and I've always liked this one, and you'll kind of laugh at me, but it puts me where I need to be. And that is to be willing to do God's will. And I have always liked that one. And it fits me because what meditation is for me to be willing to accept what comes available to me throughout each daily life I have. So it doesn't have to have a God in it to do that one. So through prayer and meditation in step 11, no, I don't do prayer. I think of prayer as external. And once I learned about meditation, then I didn't need to go externally to keep me peaceful, grounded, serene, you know, at peace with myself. Now, in my growing up in a little town in North Carolina, going to a Methodist church, they never taught how to meditate. That wasn't even a part of it. So I think by the time I got to college and beyond, I started picking up workshops on meditation. How do you meditate? And I have gone to some really crazy places to learn how to meditate, but they all helped a little bit. My favorite form of meditation happens to be in the Buddhist religion, and it's a form of silent meditation. And I think once I got the grasp of it, what it does for me, it pulls me inside my own skin. It changes my focus from external to internal. And when I'm internal and inside my own skin, I am at peace. Now, probably not before I did the 12 steps would I have been at peace within myself, but now I am. So meditation really works for me. And in the 11th step is sought through meditation, in my case, to improve my contact or my consciousness with myself is what I'm doing. And I want to know and want to become available to life that's going on around me. And I want to be centered rather than pulled in all kinds of ways externally. So if I can meditate, and it's like pulling the power from external worlds back into myself, then I do have power, personal power within myself. And then I can be the hole in the donut. Do y'all remember that concept from other meetings? I think it's in the big book of AA that we become the hole in the donut. And what that means to me is I become totally available to what is going on around me. I'm not trying to control it. I'm not dominating it. And I'm not reacting to it either. I can see it for what it is. In my earlier recovery days, when I was trying to figure me out and figure out this higher power stuff, I decided that I must be spiritual more than religious. So I went down that path for a long time. And I think what I finally have come up with for me is that spirituality for me is defined as a moment of clarity. So when I meditate, I pull the power all within me, and I am whole, I am centered, and I have a moment of clarity. So what the 11th step does for me, it puts me in the right frame of mind. Now, a lot of people I hear, pray when they get up in the morning, they pray at meals, they pray at night, they go to church once a week, maybe more, and they pray there. I don't do that, but I do get centered. My routine for every day is to get up in the morning, I get my cup of coffee, I go into the living room, I sit down with my recovery books, and I read them. And I have 5 favorite meditation readers right at the moment. And I read from all 5 of them. And if I'm working with a particular issue that day, like maybe fear is trying to creep up, or maybe I have hit a trigger in my life, then I'll go to the index of these daily readers and I read everything on that topic. But what it does for me every morning is it gets me centered back inside myself and within the recovery frame of mind. So then I have become the hole in the donut. I become available to whatever is going on around me. And I think that's what step 11 does for me all the time. There's one more thing I want to share, and then I want to open it up and hear some others of you guys and how you have done the 11th step as well. But the last thing I wanted to share, if I can remember what it is now, is by becoming the hole in the donut, or by becoming totally available to what's going on around me, or like Nancy says, in this moment, I am safe. If I become whole and serene and grounded and sound, in this moment, then I am good in that moment. So what I have learned to do in recovery is to check myself out. How am I feeling all the time? It's like step 10 that we talked about, is to review my day, or review my moment, or review my hour. How am I this moment? Am I tired? Am I hungry? Am I sleepy? Do I need to move around? Do I need to stop moving around? Do I need to take a breath? Do I need to get some water? What am I doing in this moment? So I am practicing meditation in a sense all day long, because I continue to look at me and how am I this moment. If I get into a really big pothole, I will do a formal meditation. I have a meditation stool and a little meditation rug, and I'll get it out and I'll kneel down on that rug, on that stool. I'll close my eyes and I'll go through a few minutes of formal meditation, as I was trained at some of those crazy places I went to. And I got so that I can get into a meditative state pretty quickly now. That didn't happen at first. It took me a half an hour to get centered and pull myself all together. but now I can do it in 3 or 4 minutes if I really need to do it. I think the motion of sitting down, getting into that meditation stance on my little stool, and I used to do it at my old house, you know, in front of the window where I could see out really well. And I could just pull myself back into me and get where I am centered and okay with me. And I'll do that formally if I need to, or I do it informally all the time, every day. And I think that's where I would like to stop and begin to open this up for you guys as well. We want to open up and see what questions you might have about step 11, but also first, I would love to hear some of the rest of y'all's stories about how you worked step 11. How did you make it work for you? So feel free to use your digital hand. And if you're calling from a landline, be sure and email your question to anatomy12steps2022@gmail.com, and we'll try to get you into the discussion. So while you're thinking, I'll call on you as I see the hands coming up. So Carrie, I believe you're the first one to share. Thank you.
Hi, Carrie, ACA and AA. And I just wanted to touch base on the topic of meditation. When I lived in Vermont, I took a course at the University of Vermont called Mindfulness and Happiness. And it kind of sounded like a fluffy course, but I mean, it was so scientific. There were medical doctors in there, and we learned, you know, how the brain works and how to quiet it down. But at that time, I was so out there, like all my stimulation was external. I could not get into myself. So that class for the full semester, the first 20 minutes, we had to meditate. And I still didn't get it. So then I took a second class dealing with folks with, you know, communication disorders because of an accident or, you know, aneurysms or whatever. And with that class, because it was, you're being a caregiver. So the moral of the story was you have to take care of yourself first. So for that semester, when the class started, we meditated for 10 minutes in the beginning of each class. So it took me 2 semesters to learn how to meditate and quiet myself down. So it's really can be a hard thing for people that are new at it. And there's a lot of meditations online that you can just lay on the floor and play them. I'll go to the University of Vermont's website for their meditations because that's what I know. But all I wanted to say is it was really, really hard for me to get inside myself. And I don't know if anybody else is experiencing that or experienced that. Thank you.
I have to unmute myself, but thank you very much, Carrie. Meditation, I think, is it's a skill to learn. It was for me. So it's kind of good. Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a adult child and codependent survivor. So my my story is right after I got separated from my then husband. And then my pet died about a couple of months after that, and I think I was probably more upset about the pet passing than the husband. But I really got into meditation after that, and the nature part of it, I think because of my bunny, I got really into the nature part of spirituality, and kind of felt like I was being led through the spirituality, like a spiritual awakening, right? And I don't know how, somebody told me about Abraham Hicks. So her name is Esther Hicks, and you can find her on YouTube if anybody's interested. It used to be Esther and Jerry Hicks. And when she gets into this meditative state, these vibrational, I don't want it to sound bad coming from me, but it's to me, it's uplifting. To me, it's meditation, and it's kind of the universe talking to you. And anybody can do this. Anybody can, the way that she says it, the way that Esther says it through Abraham, is that anybody can kind of tap into this universal knowing, this universal voice. And again, this is my spiritual belief, my spiritual practice. And again, if you want to look into it, it's Abraham Hicks. I've done a lot of their meditations. It's like 5 or 10. There's a nightly one. It's like one for bed that has this nice, sweet little lullaby music, and it's just kind of a general well-being. And there's another one that's like, I think, financial, and another one that's just like physical well-being. And I also, part of my spirituality was, along with the meditation, exactly pretty much like what Pat was saying, right? That it's that if you're being aware, that self-awareness, both how you feel emotionally and how you feel physically, is meditation. It's a continuing meditation. Is meditation heavily meditated. I have a T-shirt actually that says I'm heavily meditated. It is a meditation, right? It's a continuing meditation. And I also was led to look at, to explore and learn more about the chakras. So the chakras are, the different, where your spiritual vibrations, and I'm not going to try to explain it, but you can always look it up. There's the earth, the grounded chakra, the sacral, your root chakra, your sacral chakra, and all those, from the top of your head here, your heart, all the way down, right? And having been a part of that chakra practice, having kind of researched it and practiced it, not only can I feel when I'm having emotion, like I was talking about in step 10, I can feel it in my chest, sadness. My throat gets constricted. I know there's something that needs to sit. Also, I'll get it in the back of my neck. So if I start getting my shoulders and the back of my neck start getting tight and feeling pain, sometimes I'll associate that with, I'm not speaking my truth. Your diaphragm, if you get that butterfly feeling in your diaphragm, for me, that's an indication that that's my I am, my inner power, right? My empowerment chakra. So those are just kind of some things that I've explored and I've gotten a lot out of, and just followed that along with some of the natural nature, earthy type of spirituality. And that's actually helped me a lot. So hopefully it helps somebody else. And, if you are doing the same sort of thing, be interested in talking to you about it, that'd be kind of cool. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Emily. Catherine?
Hi, everybody. I'm Catherine. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic and a recovering codependent. And I have done both. I mean, I have experience with prayers, Catholicism, and meditation. When my dad would be drinking or I'd be fearful, I would say the rosary, 3-4 rosaries, sometimes in a night. And that was like a total, it took the fear away. Like when I'm praying, I can't be fearful. When I'm meditating, I can't be tense. I can't be worried. I can't be focused on something else other than just what I'm doing in that moment. And I meditated through 12 hours of labor. So, I got it down pat when I was about 20. So, and it was pretty amazing. It does work. I mean, the body, mind, and spirit, we're all connected. I'm all connected to all three. And really, meditating is self-care for me. because I often am so caught up in everyone else around me that it's the only time I really get to be with me. And so I'm a healthcare advocate and nurse, and I work with dying patients. So it's very easy to just get totally immersed in someone else. And I love that, actually. I love leaving me. Maybe that's the hole in the donut, you know, when I totally leave me and I'm totally with someone else. So thanks for letting me share.
Mm. Thank you, Catherine. Jen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen. I'm a recovering codependent and adult child. I use my daily readers similar to what someone else said, first thing in the morning, and I read 5 or 6 of them. It's just a good way to center myself to begin my day on the right foot, I guess. I have a couple that are from Coda. I have one that's from Al-Anon that's fantastic. I've got one on self-esteem, one on inner child. And so there's kind of a mix of what I need based on what I know is going on with me, because I'm doing a lot of inner child work. I try to follow that up with a walk every day, because walking for me is meditative, and there is such a thing as walking meditation. So when I go for my walk, I'm not necessarily power walking or counting all my steps or trying to make time. I'm just getting outside and connecting with nature and kind of getting a feel for how my body feels for the day. And during that time, a lot of times I will just say to my higher powers, like my source, I call it source. To me, it's like the source of everything that's good and positive in the universe. And a lot of times I'll just say, please help me, please be with me today. Please help me get through the day. Nothing complicated. My therapist told me that the walking is really kind of a bilateral stimulation. So that's kind of good too for things like anxiety. And I do Reiki. So a lot of times I'll stop in a wooded area in my neighborhood and stop and do some Reiki. And even loving kindness meditation, where I try to send loving energy out to the universe, to myself, to people that I love, and to people that I find difficult. And that is just something that I found gives me the ability to be more patient and kind, when, instead of getting as frustrated and angry as I can get, because that can happen real quick. So if I'm proactively sending loving energy out, it's grounding me too in that loving energy, which is good for me. So those are like the major things that I do. I do yoga as well. And what I'm finding is that doing all of these things is helping me be more mindful about what my needs are. So I can really tap into, like, once I'm starting to feel off, it's time to do something different. And that happened to me tonight. I've been agitated for the last 2 days, and tonight my husband and I sat down and talked for a few minutes, and I could just tell it's like, I'm not in a good place. I don't know if he is. And so what I did was I also garden, because I feel like if I'm focused on gardening and tending to something else, I'm very much in the moment with it. And so I had 6 plants that I needed to put in pots. So I went out and I got my dirt and I got my gloves and I got all my stuff, and I just potted those plants. And then I went to my lavender and I looked for seeds in my lavender plant. That can be very tedious, but in my opinion, it's meditative, because I'm very just focused on that one thing. Lavender seeds are very tiny, so you really have to stay focused. So that's a lot, but if anybody has any questions, I'll put my phone number in the chat. Thanks for listening.
Well, thank you, Jen. Now, Pat, you were up front in the queue and somehow dropped out and got back in. Do you want to go next?
I can, yes. I don't know how my hand got dropped, but it did. But I am here. I'm Pat. I am an adult child of an alcoholic and also a codependent. For me, the steps 10, 11, and 12, as we've all said before, they're the maintenance steps. They're the things that keep me in recovery. Step 11 says thought. It doesn't say achieved. And I have to remember that. Know that some days are better than others, but I don't expect me to be perfect at this program. It's a one day at a time, sometimes one moment at a time. But the more I practice it, just like if I were trying to learn a foreign language, or if I was trying to learn how to meditate, the more I practice it, the easier it gets. Carrie was talking about having trouble at that point in her life getting inside her head. And for me, I did the same thing. I went to graduate school and got a degree in counseling, and boy, they wanted to teach us how to meditate. They talked to us about the science of it and the blah, 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 blah. And I could not focus. I now understand why, because I hadn't done really a good 4th and 5th steps and gotten rid of some of that wreckage craziness from the past and let go of it. And when I finally got to the 11th step, like many people, I'd heard about prayer, but I didn't know anything about meditation. And I ended up going to a retreat. I thought the retreat was going to be partial silence. That's what it said on the literature. What I found out was and this was after we got up there, 4 days of total silence. Now, all I wanted to do was get off that mountain. It was, I've never been so scared in my life. But I'm an adult child, I can handle this, I kicked into all that craziness that I used to do. That's a longer story. I'm not going to tell the whole thing. And I will if you want to hear it. My phone number is on the list, and I'll share it with you. But I will tell you that I came away from there much more comfortable than I ever have been in my own skin. I came away more peaceful than I had ever felt in my entire life. I came away feeling much more empowered within me. I came away not hurried. I came away not stressed, even though the stresses of outside life were still the same. But I didn't have that after 4 days of total silence. And that feeling stayed with me for weeks. I have been back to that center several times and enjoy it. And when I do my maintenance steps 10, which is I need to take my personal inventory, in other words, staying present this moment. How am I doing right now? And that's what my sponsees, God, so grateful for them because they pull me back to the present moment. And then salt through prayer meditation, and then doing step 12. Those maintenance steps, if I do them, I stay so much more confident, so much more at peace. When I don't, life slips. It's just like I was talking with one lady, and we were talking about music. If you learn a piece of music and you practice it, those of you who have played an instrument or a piano or whatever, when you practice that piece over and over, it gets easier with time. At first, it's really hard. In fact, I was looking at a piece of music today going, okay, now how do you count that measure? I mean, I am so focused on one little piece of it, kind of like I was when I first started this recovery program, focusing on step 1, focusing on 1B. In other words, there's 2 parts to step 1, focusing on each step and understanding it. And then as I practiced this program, I got better. Now, so by the time we get to concert and I play this piece in concert, I'm feeling much more comfortable about doing it. But if I quit practicing it and 2 or 3 years later try to pick the piece back up, guess what? It slips. That's just like my recovery program. I've learned through slips that it's okay to have a slip. I just start over. I can learn that piece of music again. I can pick up my recovery program again. Sometimes I slip for a day or 2 or 3 or a week now, and I start chewing on my husband or my sister or my brother or my dogs or, and then I catch it. Look, here we go. Gotta get back to my steps. Gotta do what I need to do. So anyway, thanks for letting me share. This is a good meeting. I'll put myself back on mute.
Thank you, Pat. Ava, are you ready to share?
I am, but I thought Barbara was ahead of me.
In my queue, you were ahead of
No.
Barbara.
Right.
Oh, okay.
We're-
All right. Okay, I'll go ahead. I'm Ava. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. I've been doing something different these days. I'm going to classify it as meditation, although it's a little different than that. I've been working with a free material on YouTube put out by a Canadian hypnotherapist who has a background that sounds very much like ours. So her scripts, which is the positive story that she's telling, really fit my needs, self-worth and what happened to me mattered, and different things that are right on my inner child ACA requirements. So it's meditation in that initially, okay, so I don't know if any of you, this is new for me because I would never ever have trusted anybody touching me in my deep mind. I'm pretty guarded, but I'm at the point. I thought, okay, I think this is legitimate, and I think I can open up. And so really the first, it's a 2-part process. You become very relaxed. You do go deeper. There's, you're guided down to your quiet depths. And then when she's got you there, or when you've allowed yourself to go there, then she drops in the good seeds, right? And they go in deep, and they start to take root in my deep mind, or in a person's deep mind. So to me, that's almost like, that's godly work, or higher power work, or source work. That's because that's good work. And so I'm able to tolerate it, this letting somebody in that deeply. And it's interesting because occasionally now I can see the growth of the seed, because whereas, I have my regular thoughts, right? And I'll have a new thought, or a new way of looking at something, and a new feeling about myself. I really work very heavily on feelings and how I feel, and I'm very aware of how I feel. So anyway, I see this as somehow fitting in with step 11, and it seems like we all have our different ways. So, our different methods are, what we've been sharing here today. So I think if it works, and it's good work, and it's deep work, then for me, that's source work, and that's prayer, and that's meditation. It's that whole realm of being human. And so that's what I'm doing, and I thought I would share that. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Ava. I love the different ways we handle this step. So this is interesting. Thank you. Barbara, ready?
Hi, I'm Barbara, adult child, and I am currently residing in Mississippi. And thanks everybody for your shares. I wanted to do a reading first out of Courage to Change on step 11. It says, what is meditation? It leaves that question open for each of us to answer in our own way. Drawing upon the experiences of other members can help us define our own path. Here are only a few of the ways members of the fellowship have shared. Meditation is a higher spiritual awareness. I practice remembering that every action can serve a spiritual purpose. I go to a quiet place, close my eyes, and repeat the words of the Serenity Prayer in a gentle voice. I need to get beyond my thoughts, so I concentrate on my breathing, counting from 1 to 10 over and over as I breathe in and out. I simply step back and watch my thoughts as if I were watching a play. I try to keep my attention on the present day only, leaving the past and the future alone. I focus on a flower. When my thoughts stray, I accept that my mind is just doing its job, thinking, and then gently return to my subject. In my mind, I picture my higher power hands. One by one, I place my problems and my worries, my joy, and my gratitude into those hands. And finally, I climb into. I like that reading. For me, for some of the things that I do, as far as the meditation, which, before 12-step programs, I had no idea. I don't think I ever even heard the word meditation before coming into a 12-step program, or I really had never thought about even trying meditation, but I'm so grateful for what I'm learning about meditation. And indeed, I'm still learning. I'm still, my definition of God is still evolving right now. I do refer to God as my higher spiritual power. And for me, God is a spirit that exists within me, within everyone, and throughout the universe. And that's as far as I've gotten, as far as a definition for me. And that spirit is a loving spirit, a kind spirit, a compassionate spirit, a good spirit that exists in everything and everyone. And I usually, start my day by trying to send that spirit out into the world. And it does put me in a good space. And as far as the meditation, I have a mat that I keep on my floor. And I remember the first time when I got to step 11 and tried, because somebody suggested setting a timer. And I think I did set my timer for 10 minutes. And I laid down on that mat. And boy, I closed my eyes, and my mind, I I must not have just taken any time to just be quiet and listen to the thoughts that come and go through my mind. But it was really interesting to just lay there as still as I could get and let my mind do what my mind does. And that is just all these thoughts just going around. It's to me, the mind is just an amazing thing, because thoughts are always, it's really, really challenging for me, to just, even to try to just let them go by, but I'm getting much better at it. And I can do it very easily now for 30 minutes, just lay on that mat and just let my thoughts do whatever it is that they're doing, and not making any judgments about them or anything like that. And it really seems to energize me after I finish that process. I also do some mindfulness. Sarah Raymond is one of my favorite mindfulness teachers. I have one that I do at night, and I have one that I do in the mornings. And usually, after I do it in the morning, I'm ready to jump out of that bed with a burst of energy and get my day started, because it puts me in a really peaceful, good frame of mind. And it's pretty much on gratitude, loving gratitude. And just trying to see the world and things through eyes of love, compassion, gratitude, and acceptance. And I love those things. And it's just step 11. I'm so grateful for step 11 because it really helps me to stay in a peaceful place, and it's helping me to get to know who I am and how much control I really do have in my life, separate from what's going on outside of me. If I could just, take the time and pray and meditate, it really does make a huge difference in my life. So thank you all for being.
Thank you, Barbara. Vernell?
Hi, everybody. Vernell, recovering codependent and an adult child of a dysfunctional family. And I want to thank Nancy and Medeline, and especially Nancy, for that wonderful list. It's so inclusive of everything with so many great meditations. I know last year I really enjoyed a lot of them. So thank you for your time. I know that took time. And I love that you put how long each one of them was. That's great. Thank you. So for me, I do believe in prayer. And thanks to really, I guess, COVID and Zoom meetings, I have really found I've gotten into my meditations much, much more. I have a lot, and another fellow traveler mentioned Sarah Raymond. I do love listening to her meditations. They are wonderful if anyone hasn't listened. But I've also listened to some of the gurus, Eckhart Tolle, Thich Nhat Hanh. I've gotten into Tara Brach, some of the Buddhist meditations, which my higher power, who I call God, is the God of my understanding. But I have found that since I am in recovery, my mind has continued to open. Imagine that, right? It's opened more as I've decided to let it and not have a closed mind, right? Because my mind's like a parachute. It only functions when open. So I have learned that those other things have been an extra spice and have given me something. And what I do, I listen to them, a lot at night. Like before I go to bed, I put on my headphones, I find something that I like, and I listen to it, and I'll fall asleep, and that's good. And I've heard it said that you're still hearing this in your conscious mind. And then in the morning when I wake up, a lot of times, depending if I have to go somewhere or be up really early, I may not, but I try to listen to a gratitude type meditation, and that's really helpful to me. And I find the mindfulness piece is really helpful to me, which I think the Buddhism helps so much with that. Anyway, guys, I thank you. This has been a great meeting, and I've loved hearing everyone shares. Thank you.
Thank you, Vernell. Next, we have CSC.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Shelley. I'm codependent.
Shirley, thank you. Great.
Shelley. I'm calling from New York. When I read sought through prayer meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, as we understood God praying only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to get out, I find myself at times purposely not meditating. I mean, my perception of meditation for me and in my work in the world, I think that a lot of things are meditation. A good long walk could be meditation for me. Cooking could be a meditation for me. Deep rest with fluid dreams could be a meditation for me. Because there's a part of me that's conscious in that, and also unconscious and also subconscious. And so in my experience, I try to bring the meditation element of being in the present into pretty much all the activities I can. Probably except if I'm watching like junk TV, reality TV, I give myself a break there. But I do find myself struggling. You know, I started in CODA in November, and there's going to be struggles. I know there's such high points and low points in this journey to recovery, no matter the program. But I have this pattern of meditating consciously, specifically to sit and, you know, for X amount of time in the mornings. And when I do this, I feel wonderful. I feel more grounded and more centered. But when I do this, my higher powers start to tell me things that I need to hear, changes that I need to make. And the most recent one was telling me that I need to move to Florida. I don't want to move to Florida. And so what will happen is I'm like, I'm not going in there. I'm not going in that place to be told stuff I don't want to hear, you know? And so I know I'm being defiant to my own self and to my God. And I ask for forgiveness for that and patience to accept myself as a little bit of a rebel. But really, I'm faithful and hopeful that this process of recovery can help me to have a better relationship with my truth, from me to me. You know, there's certain truths that feel okay, and it's not because they're easy. I feel like I've kind of had to accept really hard truths. But the truths that seem to be best for me, those tend to be the ones that I rebel away from. And I really hope that the recovery program can help me to have the courage to want to do what's best for myself. And a part of that is telling myself the truth. And I hear the truth when I meditate. So just wanted to share that. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you very much. Jane, can you share?
Hi, I'm Jane, and I'm a grateful recovering codependent. Before I came into recovery, about a little over 30 years ago, I had attended several prayer seminars, prayer conference, and it really transformed my thinking about prayer. The second one especially taught me to pray continually. And I too think of prayer as talking to God, but the concept of really having an awareness all the time of God's presence, and in all situations, just being open to talk to God. And then I do think of meditation as listening to God, but it's not the only way that I listen to God. And initially, during that time, when I started this new prayer life, I first spent a lot of time asking God to reveal truth to me and to reveal God's perfect love to me. And so I think of God as a loving God, a merciful God, a God that is there for me at all times, any time of day or night, and in every detail of my life in a very positive way. So I learned to surrender anxiety and to really focus on receiving God's perfect peace, and to grasp God's perfect love and allow it to flow in and through me to touch others. So I also learned in situations of conflict with people, or when I needed to address issues with people, especially difficult people, my husband being one, during that time of my life. He was an alcoholic and an addict, and I had a special needs son. So it was a very intense, very challenging time in my family. And I learned to asked God to allow me to see my husband and other difficult people through God's eyes. And it really had an amazing impact. Now, by that time, I was in recovery. I was in a recovery group, not CODA, but I was in a couple of different 12-step recovery groups. I found the Serenity Prayer to be very simple and very powerful. So many times the Serenity Prayer would just come to mind, and that's where I would focus on. I had not had experience with formal meditation. I meditated, but it was not formal meditation. And I attended a silent retreat. Now, the focus of the silent retreat was not really meditation, but it was I would say I experienced meditation in that process, and it was very powerful. There were so many things revealed to me during that 3 days of silence. The other thing, and this has been in CODA, the biggest transformation that I've seen in CODA for me, I used to pray for other people a lot. And I really thought that I knew how God should work. So that's my CODA thinking, my tendency to want to solve other people's problems and to fix other people. So this is where step 11 in recovery in CODA has had a very powerful impact on me. And that little part of step 11, praying only for the knowledge of God's will and power to carry it out. My change has been where I'm focusing on just that, not trying to tell or even think about how God needs to solve other people's problems or how I need to solve other people's problems. And the other thing that has really helped me since in the past year or so, I think with COVID, I had more time, unfortunately, to think in ways that would sort of keep me awake at night. And it was during the past couple of years that I have learned and experienced more with a more formal kind of meditation. So when I'm thinking, when I have obsessive thoughts running through my mind in the middle of the night, I have used some meditation apps, and that has really helped me to let go of the obsessive thinking and to actually fall asleep during the meditation. So that's been very positive. I would love to attend some more meditation retreats. Thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you very much, Jane. Allison?
Hi, everybody. Oh, man. To me, first of all, this meeting has really illustrated the power of choosing a higher power of our own understanding. The various methods of working this step have just been so cool. So with that, when I first came, Allison, South Carolina, Codependence Anonymous. And when I first came to this step, I needed it really literal and concrete and simple. And I didn't know from prayer and meditation. And so I took the words literally, sought through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact. So that was my goal. My goal was to connect with my higher power. It's still my goal. And for me, when it said praying only for knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry that out. That really simplified things for me. Like what was said earlier, that's it. For the purposes of step 11, that's the only thing I pray for, is that knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry it out. What it reminds me to do is to recommit to that promise to myself that I made in step 3. You know, in step 3, I said, okay, you know, I'm making a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of a power greater than myself, greater than my codependency. And in step 11, prayer reminds me to do that, because I get caught up in all of the craziness and I want to fix it. Oh, right. No, I don't do that anymore. I can't fix it, but I can turn it over. And so step 11 reminds me to do that. Meditation was just a complete mystery to me for a long time. And I discovered one that really worked for me. Once again, very concrete, counting breaths, 1 to 10, 10 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 1. Boring, boring, boring. But what it let me do was to, all right, so if my goal is to improve conscious contact with my recovery rather than my disease, the flip side of that is that my connection with my codependency is completely unconscious. That is automatic, knee-jerk reaction. I don't have to think about it at all. Boom, it comes up, my first go-to codependent reaction. So what meditation allowed me to do with the boring thinking, you know, 1 to 10, 10 to 1, if my intentional thought was counting, then anything else coming into my head was unintentional, automatic. And that gave me some practice recognizing my intentional thinking versus my automatic habitual thinking. That helped me to recognize my intentional recovery thinking compared to my automatic crazy codependent thinking that really didn't belong to me anyway. I've developed, I'm Buddhist, and so I found that after many years, I didn't start out that way, but you know, it dovetails very nicely with my recovery process, and I find those teachings make sense to me. So that's kind of where I've landed. And so my prayer and meditation process have changed. But again, my primary goal for my step 11 is keep in my recovery, stay in my recovery, be conscious of my recovery, and recognize the codependency and the itty bitty shitty committee in my head as just so much hotter. So that's where I'm at today. Thanks for letting me share.
Wow, thank you, Allison. I was so hoping you would share, so this is great. I know a little bit about her background, so that was good. Amy, can you share with us?
The main thing, I'm Amy from Arkansas AACA. The main thing I want to say is thank you for the meditations, because I actually sat down and did them. And usually I'm not compliant. I'm like, no, why would I do that? And then I thought, well, this is a spiritual awakening for me. And I do appreciate, Nancy, that you put those on there and made me aware, because I'm just in my own little world. And yeah, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all both.
Thank you, Amy. Hortensia?
Hi, good evening. My name is Hortensia. I'm an ACA. So my 11th step is my favorite one from all the 12 steps. Like, I just love it, love it, love it. And it has evolved, and I am always tweaking it just because I like it so much. And currently, but I always started with the 3rd step prayer that I find in the yellow book from ACA. I memorized that prayer because my self-will is so strong that I always forget it. So I kind of have to remind myself to turn my will to God. So I always begin it with the third step prayer. And then I curate playlists recently. And so I put 3 songs. The first one is a mantra. So I go and look for mantras that I like because that kind of helps me center. Then the second song is just a background music to help me just connect to the breath. And depending on what I'm feeling that day, I can either do breath counts or go through the parts of my body or metta meditation, whatever meditation I feel like doing that day. So I just have like a 5-minute background song. And the last song I put is one song that I do know the lyrics, like it can be the prayer of St. Francis or one song from church that I like that I can sing the words to, and that really connects me to something like God help me to see the way you see, or help me to love the way you love. And so for me, singing and music really connects me even stronger than just a prayer. And so with kind of like the playlist guides me through it. And so I feel really connected to my higher power with my playlist. So I have fun curating my playlists on the weekend, and they guide me. And so I don't get like the playlist by itself guides me through my 11th step in the morning. And then at the end, I just do my reader from the ACA little daily reader. And sometimes I journal depending on the morning. Sometimes I have time, sometimes I have to get to work or something, but that's what I'm doing lately. And I really enjoy doing it with music. And yeah, I think it's been fun curating my 11 step playlist. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Hortensia. And before we move out of this part of the session tonight, I want to ask one final question. Now, if you need a piece of paper and pencil in front of you, feel free to grab one while I ask the question. From what you've heard tonight and what you've experienced before in 12-step meetings, how could you say in 5 or 6 words, what is the purpose of the 11th step? What is the purpose? For you, what is the purpose of the 11th step? And would a couple of you be willing to share what you see as the purpose, as you see it, for the 11th step? Catherine?
Hi, everybody. I see it in 5 words. Being open to receive wisdom.
Open to receive wisdom. Great. Emily?
I see it as kind of finding myself and finding others.
Finding yourself and others. Great. Ava?
Alignment with truth.
Alignment, as you say, wit?
No, alignment with truth.
With truth. Great. Thank you, Ava.
Thank you.
Jan?
For me, it's staying grounded in the present moment.
Staying grounded in the present moment. And for me, and I'll stop with me, and mine would be something like, it puts me in a frame of mind to be of service to others, which I have to do for myself first, but then be of service to others. Great discussion tonight. Thank you all so much for sharing. And before we end the meeting tonight, I need to ask Ava or Vanel, would you like to share about what we're going to do next week for step 12?
Hey, everybody. Yes, Ava and I talked about it, and I'm going to just give you something to get you thinking about, you said service. So yeah. So we'll be your guides as are ending our 12th step anatomy journey for this year. But with endings come new beginnings, right? New, awakened, improved ways of living, loving, and giving. So with that little bit, we look forward to seeing each of you next week on our final step. And I know we'll have another session after, but step 12, the end, but really a beginning. We'll see you all next week, and Ava's got the homework ready to roll, right? Thank you, everybody. Great meeting tonight on step 11.
Wow, thank you. And as Vernell said, next week will be step 12, but we will have a wrap-up session the following Wednesday night. So we have 2 more sessions in the series. And with that, I will turn it back over to Nancy to end our meeting.
Thanks, Mideline. One thing I wanted to say that I forgot to say earlier, just really quickly, is that just like you have to work up to running a marathon, like to run a marathon, you first have to be able to walk around the block, and then you first have to be able to run around the block, and so on. It's the same way with meditation. It's not going to work the first few times you try it. In fact, it's not going to work for a long time when you try it. If you've never tried it before, it's going to take practice. And if you can, practice without judgment. So just like dedicate 10 minutes a day to it and practice it, and don't judge yourself on it. Eventually you'll notice the good that it's doing. I forgot to say that earlier, so I just wanted to add that in. And I just want to say that I really appreciated everybody's comments tonight. Everybody has such different ways of doing things, and it was just really exciting and fun to hear it all. So thank you so much for all of your sharing. I want to close tonight with the Coda 11th step prayer. I like the Coda prayers because they seem less complicated than the AA prayers. Maybe because they were written closer to the way we talk and write today. But I really like the Coda step prayers. In fact, I sent a link to Ava. She may not have looked at it yet because I just sent it today, with a PDF of the Coda step prayers for everybody. But I want to read the 11th step prayer. In this moment, I quiet my thoughts and open my mind and heart to God's guidance for me. In this moment, I have the gentle peace that conscious contact with God allows. If I am troubled and in doubt, or if I am joyful and serene, I turn to God. I know my path will be revealed, and the way to my highest good will be made known. So that's the Coda 11th step prayer as it is written. And so I want to wish everybody a good night, and some of us will stick around if anybody has questions.